by Solomon ben Ismail. Not Israel, but Ismail, okay? And that's where they start putting the numerals and things like that, the Arabic numbers, which are the numerals, 1, 2, 3, etc. They start putting those in the margin of the Hebrew text. So that's a heathen invention, or a one of the other nations inventing that. So, but that's training us to start thinking about it like that. It has pros and cons. Learning the chapters and verses to know where things are, that's good. But also it starts to prohibit us when we start learning train of thought and breaking things into chapters, thinking things are starting over. So like for instance, Proverbs chapter 2, that's literally one sentence in the actual Hebrew. That's one sentence. Okay? And it doesn't seem like it's a real big issue. But when you go to Isaiah 53, everybody starts at the top and says, okay, Isaiah 53, Yeshaya 53, it starts brand new. No, 52 is actually leading into it. And if you go into the book, you'll see crystal clear that there's 22 times the word servant is mentioned in the book of Isaiah. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to start going through some of those things and start going through some of these deals dealing with servant, right? So that's the first thing we want to do. So let's do that first, so we can get a good bead on who the servant is, because the nations have taught and confused people thinking that this servant is Jesus Christ, or Jeepers Creepers, who the world called JC, Yeshua, etc. All these different Yahushua, all these different terms they use for this mythological savior. So people are taking these things and not really understanding what's going on. So let's go into Isaiah chapter 5, Isaiah, and see the 22 times the word servant is mentioned. And that'll give us the context on who the suffering servant is in Yeshaya 53. But we're going to start at 52, round the 13th verse, and then jump into 53, okay? So let's do that first. Let's start right now. All right, guys. So we're going to go through Isaiah, the 22 instances that the actual word servant is used, okay? So Isaiah, first time, 20 and 3, and the Lord said, as my servant Isaiah have walked naked and barefoot 3 years for a sign and wonder upon Egypt and upon Ethiopia. That's the first time the word servant is used, okay? Then we're going to go to Yeshaya chapter 22, verse 20. And it shall come to pass in that day that I will call my servant Eliakim, the son of Hilkiah, right? Isaiah 24 and 2. And it shall be with the people, so with the priest, as with the servant, so with his master, as with the maid, so with his mistress, as with the buyer, so with the seller, as with the lender, so with the borrower, as with the taker of usury, so with the giver of usury to him. Okay? 37 and 35. For I will defend this city to save it for my own sake and for my servant David. Okay? Now, let's jump into Isaiah, Yeshaya 41. 41:8. But thou, Yisrael, art my servant, Yaakov, whom I have chosen, the seed of Abraham, my friend. Now we're going to start using and seeing the context of Israel being the servant. Okay, so now let's do multiple verses. 41 and 9. Thou whom I have taken to the ends of the earth, and called thee from the chief men thereof, and said unto thee, Thou art my servant, I have chosen thee, and not cast thee away. 42 and 1. Behold my servant whom I uphold, mine elect, and whom my soul delighteth. I have put my spirit upon him. He shall bring forth judgment to the Gentiles. Judgment to the Gentiles. 42 and 19. Who is blind but my servant, or deaf as my messenger that I sent? Who is blind as he that is perfect, and blind as the Lord's servant? Nothing to do with JC. Okay? So now let's go to Yeshaya chapter 43, verse 10. Ye are my witnesses, saith Yah, and my servant whom I am chosen, and that ye may know and believe me, and understand that I am he. Before me there was no God formed, neither shall there be after me. 44 and 1. Yet now hear, O Yaakov my servant, and Yisrael whom I have chosen. Verse 44 and 2. Thus saith Yah that made thee, and formed thee from the womb, which will help thee. Fear not, O Yaakov my servant, thou Yeshurun whom I have chosen. And if you look up the Hebrew word Yeshurun, it means upright. And you'll see that Moshe was first called governor, or what we call kings, but actually governor in Yeshurun. So Yeshurun means upright. Yeshaya chapter 44 verse 21. Remember these, O Yaakov and Yisrael, for thou art my servant. I have formed thee, thou art my servant, O Yisrael. Thou shalt not be forgotten of me. 42 and 26. That confirmeth the word of the servant, and performeth the counsel of his messenger, that saith to Jerusalem, Thou shalt be inhabited to the cities of Yehuda. Thou shalt be built, and I will raise up the decayed places thereof. 45 and 4. For Yaakov my servant's sake, and Yisrael mine elect, I have even called thee by thy name. I have surnamed thee, though thou hast not known me. And that's talking about Cyrus. But even still, in that verse, the servant is Yisrael. Okay, the nation. So Yeshaya 48:20. Go ye forth of Babylon, flee ye from the Chaldeans, with a voice of singing, declare ye, tell this, utter it even to the end of the earth. Say ye, Yah hath redeemed his servant Yaakov, 49:3, and said unto me, Thou art my servant, O Israel, in whom I will be glorified. 49:5. And now saith Yah, that formeth me from the womb to be his servant, to bring Yaakov again to him. Thou, Israel, be not gathered, yet shall I be glorious in the eyes of Yah, and my God shall be my strength. Okay? Again, still no JC. Right? Yeshaya chapter 49, verse 6. And he said, It is a light thing that thou shouldest be my servant, to raise up the tribes of Yaakov, and restore the preserved of Israel. I will also give thee for a light to the Gentiles, that thou mayest be my salvation to the end of the earth. 49:7. Thus saith Yah, the Redeemer of Israel, and his Holy One, to whom man despiseth. To him whom the nation abhors, to the servant of rulers, king shall see and arise, prince shall also worship, because of Yah that is faithful and the Holy One of Israel, he shall choose thee. Again, the servant is Yisrael. So we only have 3 verses left, right? We only have 3 verses left. And the 3 verses we have left is Yeshaya chapter 50, verse 10, Yeshaya chapter 52, verse 13, and then of course Yeshaya chapter 53, verse 11. And I told you 52 and 13 is going to go right into 11. Now I went and showed you guys all this excess stuff for one particular reason. Because there are no chapters and verses in antiquity, when you read 52, it flows right into 53. It's not a break. It's a continual thing, okay? So now, let's take a look at that. Let's look at Yeshaya chapter 52, right? Let's look at Yeshaya chapter 52. 50 and 10. Who is among you that feareth Yah, that obeyeth the voice of his servant, that walketh in darkness and hath not no light? Let him trust in the name of Yah and stay upon his God. And Isaiah 50 and 10, if you read Isaiah 50, the entire chapter, you'll see in context, it's talking about the governor of that time. Now, Yeshaya 52 and 13, Behold, my servant shall deal prudently. He shall be exalted and extolled and be very high. This is Yisrael, the suffering servant. And we go to Isaiah 53 and 11. And we're going to go back and look at this. He shall see of the travail of his soul and shall be satisfied. By his knowledge shall my righteous servant justify many, for he shall bear their iniquities. And that's exactly and precisely what we do. We struggle because we attempt to follow the customs and ways of the children of the nations. So when you look at that, and what that all entails, we start to remember that there's a such thing as a code of sin when we start seeing how the Gentiles, your silence, you'll have to pay for that silence, right? When you see things wrong and don't acknowledge things being wrong, that's wickedness, right? And I remember my father used to tell me, black people have been called lazy ever since we stopped working for free, since slavery, captivity on the physical chattel level ended. So when you look at the cognitive dissonance, that's where a lot of this stuff comes in. And I'm going from a psychological standpoint. I was talking to one of my good friends, Sue, and I was telling her, like, for instance, if you right now stomped a kitten or a puppy, and people saw that, that person would have trauma, PTSD, post-traumatic stress syndrome. So think about that. If people can go to war and see their friends get shot in war and have PTSD, then what do you think happens when people on the plantation see their wives raped, their fathers castrated, their children sold off, the husband sold off, the wife sold off? Then that trauma that's never dealt with, we never had any psychology, any therapy to deal with that stuff while we was on the plantations for hundreds of years. Then after the plantations, when we were freed, supposedly from the chattel slavery, but the slavery, the captivity is still here, but from the chattel slavery with the, the beating and lynching and things like that, that's when the Klan comes in. So now we have that trauma. That's not healed. There's no therapy for that. And then you look all the way up to today, everybody keeps telling us, pull yourself up by the bootstraps. Why are you lazy? Make something of yourself. And it's funny because the majority of the people, the Gentiles that are here in this land, majority of them are immigrants. They immigrated here, and if you came in the 1800s, you were given free lands, millions of acres of free land. So there was no bootstrap. There was no